And on my dad's shortwave radio, it's our new friend, Marc Randolph. How are you, man?
I'm pretty well, Joe. Thanks very much for having me on.
Well, now I want to make sure that I get the name right on this. One of the businesses you founded. Do you pronounce it Netflix? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, no, it's a hearty, neat flicks. So, and I've been fighting that for friggin' 20 years. I've almost given up at this point.
You and Reed going back and forth, like how?
Well, yeah, Reed wanted the hard E because of his name, and I go, yeah. Reed, okay, well, I'll give you a touch of that bone.
Were you ever told, by the way, that that name won't work?
Oh my God, yeah. In fact, there was this moment, you operate for the first 6 months with a beta name because you need something to put in the checks and pay people and do all that crap. And you go, we'll figure out the real name when we get closer to launch. And then, of course, you get there and you go, oh my God, everything I want is taken. Everything I want, I can't get the domain name for, or it means, some obscenity in Polish. And you're kind of desperate. And we had this whiteboard. And on one side, we had a list of all the names, a list of all these words that were kind of evocative of the internet. And the other column was words evocative of movies. And so we just began drawing the lines. And people didn't like Netflix because, I can see, you're probably of an age and old. They used to call porn movies skin flicks. And so everyone goes,
I wouldn't know.
Flicks.
I'd have no idea what you're talking about.
You just read it for the articles.
That's right.
But it's like, and everyone goes, it sounds like that. I don't like that. And that X, that just accentuates that. But it sounded porny, but Netflix was it. And now looking back, it seems to work okay.
Yeah, I think it's worked out all right for everybody, Marc. When it comes to all the ideas you've had, you've started 7 companies. Fact check me on any of this, Marc, at any time. But I think
so far so good.
Founded 7, probably had far more ideas than that. Many, many more ideas than that. Where does Netflix rank in terms of the ideas that you thought would take off versus companies you thought might not take off?
No, well, listen, the reason my book and my new podcast is called That'll Never Work is because that's what everyone said. And they said it about every business I've done. They said it about this crazy idea to rent DVDs by mail. And the reality is, they're right. You pick this idea, which you're excited about, and you launch it, and they don't work because they're just ideas. They're just starting points. And the challenge is not to figure out what's a great idea and spend all this time researching and dreaming and thinking, because you're going to be wrong. You have to take whatever the idea you have, make it as promising as it can be, but realize it's flawed and just start. And that's what happened with Netflix. Our original idea was very different than obviously hugely different than what Netflix became today. It started out, selling DVDs. It started out renting DVDs a la carte, no subscription. And you take those bad ideas and you modify them and you try new things and you experiment, and the skill is where you pivot to.
Are you then a fan of the whole idea of minimum viable product? Get it out there, see what people think before you shine it up?
Yes and no. I'm a huge fan of the part that says get it out there. I hate minimal viable product. I'm a big fan of the minimal unviable product. I want the trick is testing your idea without actually doing it. Picking something which is a proxy for the idea, completely non-repeatable and non-scalable, because that allows you to go even faster. And that's a kind of a hard, abstract thing to say. But if you're spending time working on the minimal viable product, you're usually going way too slow. So yes, to go as fast as you can, but don't let this preconception of how polished it has to be. I've never gotten to the bottom of always saying, oh, I can make it a little crappier.
I've got, before we get to your current project, which I'm super excited about, and I want to play a trailer from here in a second, I've got just one more Netflix question that I've heard. I think most of our listeners now have probably heard the story about you and Reed going to this building in downtown Dallas, which of course is Blockbuster. You're partnering with and selling the company to Blockbuster, I believe, for $50 million, and they laugh you out of the room. And on the way back, though, the question I really have isn't about that. The question I have was something you said at a speech in Copenhagen. You said, then I realized on this somber flight back home, now we're going to have to kick their ass. Were you really thinking that now we're going to kick Blockbuster's ass?
Yeah, yes, but not necessarily out of the sense of, oh, hooray, we're an inch away from failure, but we're going to still win.
Right.
It was more this realization that this Deus ex machina, the hand of God that was going to pluck us from danger, wasn't there. That this deal we thought was going to save us, not only wasn't going to save us, they were going to compete with us. And it was this realization that sometimes, in fact, quite frequently in the startup world, there's no other way out. Or my dad used to sometimes say, listen, Mark, sometimes the only way out is through. And I think that we're going to kick their ass statement was, okay, I guess we're all in. We're going to have to do it. And the only way that we're going to survive as a company is if we eventually can get past Blockbuster. And, it took us another 10, 12 years, but eventually we did.
On your new podcast, you are advising new business owners, existing business owners. We have a bunch of people that listen to this show that will never own a business, Mark. So I want to ask you a couple questions that probably won't show up on the new show, but are questions that you will know the answer to better than most people. When it comes to interviewing someone, everybody that listens to the show at one point or another is going to interview. You've interviewed, I would imagine, thousands of people, not just entrepreneurs, people who are going to work for you. What really lights you on fire that you hear from somebody who might be an interviewee for you?
Side projects. I mean, by far. In fact, especially when I'm interviewing an engineer, a programmer, is you can talk about their background, where they worked, what their skill sets are, their education, but blah, blah, blah. The thing that you learn is when you say, so what are you working on the side? What are you building? And letting them go off on this passion project they have. Because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for this spark. You're looking for that all in. You're looking for this almost compulsion to create something. And when I see that, not just in an engineer, but in anybody, I go, this is the kind of person I have. They're not in this for the title or the salary or the status. They're in it because they want to build something. And that's who you want by your side when you're taking on these jobs, these tasks that everyone else says will never work.
And then people working for you, there had to have been times when people were asking for raises. And this is a question we get all the time, especially now during COVID, Mark. Some companies are having a tough time. Companies like Netflix doing very well because everybody's staying at home, right? But what's the best way for somebody to come up to you and ask Marc Randolph for a raise?
Okay, so now you're going to get me into dangerous territory here because I think about this a little bit differently than most people and most companies. I want to pay you what you're worth. I absolutely do. I want to pay you slightly more than you're worth. But we need to determine together what you're truly worth. So I love it if someone says, hey, listen, I've been out interviewing. I don't feel insulted. I don't feel, oh, God, those illoyal bastards.
Yeah.
I go, fantastic. What are you hearing? What is the market right now for somebody with your skill sets? Because those things fluctuate dramatically. And I don't want to be stuck in some rut about, oh, we did 4% last year and we can only, that's ridiculous because certain roles and certain companies have dramatically fluctuating market values. And if I'm not recognizing the true market value, I might be able to pull a fast one. I might be able to go, look how smart I am saving the company money, but I've screwed myself because the person's going to realize it eventually. And then A, go, Mark is a dick, and B, they're going to leave the company. I'd rather pay you what you're worth. We've got to figure that out. Unfortunately, it cuts both ways. In other words, if you're in a job which was highly in demand a few years ago and it's no longer in demand, I'm not going to feel that it's reasonable to say I'm going to give you a big raise just because you have tenure or because you're a great guy. So it all comes down to answering your question. I want you to come in with some concrete reasons why you're worth what you say you are. And if we agree on that, I am all in.
Well, let's talk to entrepreneurs now, Mark, because that's what lights your fire at this point. I want to start off, if you don't mind, by playing the trailer from the new show. This is the trailer for this.
How many times have you been told that will never work? Maybe you were describing your business idea to a spouse or a friend or even a potential investor. My name is Marc Randolph, and believe it or not, I've been told that will never work all my life. I heard it for each of the 7 companies I founded, including Netflix, where I also served as the company's first CEO. And we all know how that idea turned out. But the best thing about proving the doubters wrong
is that along the way, you learn a ton of stuff. And now, as an advisor, investor, public speaker, and best-selling author, I get the opportunity to work with other entrepreneurs on their nascent businesses, helping them turn their ideas into sustainable companies. And that's what my new podcast, That Will Never Work, is all about. For all the challenges that the global pandemic has presented, it's also created new opportunities. Lots of folks are starting or leaning into new businesses, fearlessly trying to make a new life for themselves. On this podcast, I offer the same sort of tough love business advice that my colleagues have relied upon for years. Only this time, I'm speaking with folks from around the globe.
I can't wait to hear this podcast. This is totally up my alley.
I haven't heard that in a while. That's awesome. Thank you.
And by the way, it's funny because I called it "This Will Never Work" and it's "That Will Never Work," but people will find it. Let's dive in, Marc. Do you hear new entrepreneurs struggle with the same few hurdles over and over? Is there kind of a system, or is it different for everybody?
No, it's really funny you say that because I was concerned. I was going, what there? I'm going to go through the 6 or 8 common things, and then what do we talk about? But I've been amazed at the range of things that people struggle with. And I shouldn't have been surprised because when I started off kind of doing mentoring 15, 16, 17 years ago, I thought I'd be solving problems about go-to-market and financing. But people struggle with a lot of personal things too. What do I do about my co-founder who's not working out? Oh. What do I do about my relationship breaking down? What do I do about this board member who, wow, he was my best friend when things were going well, but I get the sense he doesn't like me now. I mean, these are the things they don't teach you in business school. These are the things you don't necessarily learn on the way up. And it's been remarkable, this huge range of issues that early stage people building businesses bump into, in addition to the common ones like lack of focus or not knowing which to do next or realizing how to bring the right people on, how to build the right culture.
How often is it as simple as just self-doubt?
Is what is simple as self-doubt?
Just the problem is as simple as just self-doubt. Because I know even for me, I feel fear all the time, Marc, and I consider myself an entrepreneur, not just with this show, but with my previous financial planning firm that I owned. And self-doubt was there all the time.
No, I totally get it. The reason I didn't pick up on it is I don't call it self-doubt. I basically, pardon me for saying this, I call it excuses, which is like everyone goes, oh, I really have this great idea, but, and then they all come out, but I need to graduate, but I need to learn how to program, but I have to raise money, but I need a co-founder, but. And what I've learned is no. If you have an idea, the best way to figure out if it's going to work is just to do it and to realize that all those things you believe are the impediments are false. That if you can frame it correctly, if you can learn how to try your idea without actually building it, you can get started right away. And getting started is where the learning begins. So yes, there is a lot of self-doubt in people. People aspire to this and they don't think they can do it. And part of my role on earth is to demonstrate to people that you do not need. I've had a bunch of success, but I'm not a god. I don't have magical powers. I've learned some very basic, simple approaches, and that's really what I try and show people in a concrete, specific way on the podcast.
You should have gone #spoiler when you said you don't have magical powers. I mean, I don't know if I want to listen anymore, Marc. You talk about not having the right founder. And I had a good mentor that I work with at one point that told me that I should ask more often who, not how, right? So many things a founder doesn't know how to do. So ask who can do it. How important is it having the right people in your corner, Marc, when you're going to get this new idea moving?
I think it's essential. I think the sole role, in my opinion, of a manager, and you put a CEO in that position. The sole role is 1, to put the right people in the right seats, and then 2, to give them all the information they need for them to make good decisions. It is not to be the decider. It is not to be the person who tells everyone what to do. Having the right people around you is critical, and it's this combination of skill set. It's a combination of work ethic. It's a combination of creativity, persistence. And it changes. Now, what makes that we can get into that as the second thing I've talked about this as well, is it changes. You build this people around you to get started. And then all of a sudden in a year and a half, 2 years, you need different people. And that's a whole different story. But who you have around you is a critical thing.
Why is that? Why do you need different people later?
The nature of the business changes when it's small, when you're still struggling to find product market fit. Everybody's a jack of all trades. Everyone comes to work not sure what problem they'll be solving that day. And they need to have this flexibility to jump from one day I'm doing this, next day I'm doing this, our challenge is this. And that's a certain type of person. Eventually, if you're lucky, you begin to realize what your business is really all about. What you do have to have be repeatable and scalable. And then you have a different level of person who's much, much better at optimization, who's much more focused on a specific skill set, or who's less of a doer and more of a manager. And speaking personally, it is the most brutal thing to bring someone into your office and sit them down, a person that worked tirelessly along with you for those first 2 or 3 years, getting this business off the ground, who would do anything for you, but they're not the right person to take on that senior position, and have to tell them, I'm sorry, I'm bringing someone in over you. Just even saying that right now, it's just a heartbreaking thing to have to do. But fundamentally, your obligation is to the business. And that is what's required sometimes.
That's so hard. I'm sure that you've already recorded many of these episodes, or at least a lot of the interviews and a lot of the consulting you've done. Anything really surprise you so far?
Yeah, I'm surprised at the range of ideas that people are coming up with. They are so out there and exciting.
Out there in a good way, I'm assuming.
Oh, no, in a fantastic way. I mean, people come in with these stories. Like, for example, one young woman I was talking to had spent 6 or 7 years working as a coach for a pickup artist. In other words, training young men to help pick up women, and it kind of learned all these incredible skills. Kind of a creepy thing.
It's that Will Ferrell movie, I think, Hitch.
Yeah, exactly. And then had a change of heart and said, these skills that I'm teaching can be used for good instead of evil. And now she works on how training people to form deeper, more meaningful connections. And to work through with someone like that about how do you scale, how do you find the right kind of PR for your business, is just fascinating, not just for the personal story, but for the business story. I mean, they're all over the place. Another person has this indoor action adventure park they're building. And I'm going, oh my God, so you're going to serve alcohol, you're going to have zip lines. Oh my,
what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. I think I use those exact same words. But each time I get on with someone for our call, I am so excited by it, because I'm just naturally curious, and to be given the opportunity to find out where they come up with this, and what are they doing to make it real, and then hopefully give them a little nudge or a shove and put them on the right path. It's really, I miss it every time I don't get to do it.
Just the marketing for the former pickup artist, that is totally, that's my episode. Just how do you market these things that are so difficult to market? The podcast is That Will Never Work. This comes out on February 1st, Mark. I think you're out at about the same time, right?
Yes, February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day. So we'll hope that this podcast actually, I can't remember whether you want to see your shadow or don't see your shadow. But either way, let's hope it sticks around for a long time after that.
Awesome. And we'll link to the podcast at iTunes and at Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, on our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. Mark, thank you so much for spending time with us and giving people some hints on whether they work for somebody or if they're an entrepreneur, helping us all stack a few Benjamins. I appreciate it.
Oh, Joe, it's such a pleasure. This was really, really fun.